thank you so much for joining us. What I love about this podcast is that I just never know how to introduce somebody because you have so many weird and wonderful things that you do. So I would do you a disservice. So Rachel, if people don't know who you are, could you tell viewers, listeners, who you are?
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, so I'm Rachel Abi. I do I've got many hats, as you said, to be honest. So outside of my 9 to 5, which is working in human resources, I am a YouTuber. So I've got a channel centered around adulting, so essentially helping millennials like myself with life advice and just navigating life. And if we're feeling behind, it's about giving tips about how to navigate life and not feel too depressed about where we're at, to be honest. So that's what my YouTube channel is based on, like life tips for millennials and Gen Z. I used to have a business as well, which I know we're going to speak about today, but I've decided to close that. But I definitely am multi-passionate. So probably in a couple of years' time, I'll be doing something in addition to this. But at the moment, I work in human resources during the day, and then I use my YouTube channel and Instagram page to focus on giving life tips to people like myself.
Awesome. And I'm going to go straight in at the deep end with the first question, which is, you recently shared a video about closing your business. We see so many videos about, opening businesses, how to make them really successful, but actually most people don't talk about that part. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about your decision to close your business and also your decision to make a video about that, and kind of how you came to that decision. What kind of led you there? Because it was a successful business.
It's a really, really good question. And I closed it maybe a couple of months ago, December, I believe. So, I used to have a business, a product-based business. So I used to hand make things like herbal teas, mostly herbal teas, which women could use for things like regulating their menstrual cycle, alleviating period cramps, period pains, various other things to do with like our reproductive system. And I also used to sell like crystals and e-products as well, so quite a few things. And I guess I had that for 2 years, and the reason why I decided to close it is because I'm at a very different part of my life compared to when I first started my business. So I had it for 2 years, and at that time I was single, like I wasn't married. I was living with my parents, and essentially I was looking for a time filler, so something that I could just use to switch off from work and just like absorb myself with in the evenings. But then like fast forward 2 years later, like I'm now married, I live with my husband, and my wants and needs just changed really. And actually there is a spiritual element to it as well, because my actual interests changed, and like where I foresee myself being in a few years' time. So there's quite a few reasons like as to why I actually closed it, but in essence it definitely was because of a lifestyle change and then an interest change as well. And I'm really passionate about doing things that we actually feel passionate about, and it just no longer was something that gave me joy, so I really felt misaligned with it, and I made the very hard decision to close it.
And I think it's a really brave decision, because you see so many people sort of talking about how to open businesses and things like that, but actually the process of closing it is a painful one, because in a way you've spent all this time growing it, but actually now it's time to step back. And how did you feel around making a video about that? Was that something you immediately knew, I'm comfortable making a video? Did it take a bit of time for you to come to that decision? Because it's my views, it's a brave thing to do.
No, I was actually just going to close the business and like take the website down, everything down quietly, and kind of like disappear into the distance, and no one would have heard of me, kind of thing. But actually it was through speaking to you that I decided to make a video about closing a business. And in future videos I will make videos about how I started it and give, I guess, like entrepreneurial tips. But after speaking with you, and I think a lot of I guess motivation comes from speaking to our peers, definitely. But as you said, because it isn't something that many people come across and are really brave to speak about, it seemed like a really good video topic. And it was really like painful to close my business, because it was something that I put a lot of effort and time into, and that I was passionate about. But like you said, not many people talk about closing a business. You know, oftentimes they kind of like just like do it quite quietly, and you're left wondering what happened to so and so, or what happened to her website or her shop, etc. And in case there are people like me, I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about that topic, and essentially to give people the permission that yes, you know, you can work on something that you're really passionate about, but you know, if at any point in time it no longer ignites you or excites you, it's okay to close and like to pivot and to do something different. So that's why I decided to make that video.
Yeah, and I think it was a great video. I think it really fits in with your whole channel, which is, you know, actually, if the fun has stopped, stop doing it. And it is okay to kind of buck the norm and not just plow on at something, even though you're not enjoying it. It doesn't feel good for you anymore. But, you know, society says that this is what success looks like, so I'm going to crack on anyway. And actually to really publicly say, you know what, I'm going to buck that trend. Not only am I going to close that business, I'm going to tell the world that I've done it. And you know what, if you're watching this video and you feel the same, do it. And I really like that, which kind of leads me on to the next question around your YouTube, because your YouTube is a huge success. And I think there's a lot of people at work who don't know about your YouTube channel. So it's your secret life. But can you tell me a little bit about kind of what led you into YouTube and what made you want to pick up a camera?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually, because my YouTube channel has changed over, I've had it maybe for, I don't know if it's 3-4 years, probably more actually. And to be honest, I actually had a YouTube channel prior to the one that I currently have. So when I was around 18 or 17, 18, I was really into natural hair care, and I created a different channel centered around that. And then I guess my interest changed, a similar experience of interest change, and I took that channel down. And now I have my current channel, which is about like life advice and life tips for the younger people. But yeah, it didn't start off like that. It started off, I believe my first few videos were about my veganism journey, because many moons ago, I was completely plant-based and really passionate about not eating meat, etc., really looking after the environment, our impact on society, etc. And that's what my channel was like predominantly about previously. And then after I finished my plant-based journey, that lasted about 2 years, I decided to keep the channel, but just to kind of like use it to document where I was at in my life. So there was a few videos where I was talking again about hair care, and then a few videos about spirituality. And I think essentially my channel really reflects what my thoughts are focused on. So, you know, I reached a point in my own life where I started to think about the future and, you know, what I wanted to create for myself. So like where I wanted to live, how much money I wanted to make, how I like to spend my free time. And because so much of my time and thoughts were focused on those things, I just thought, why not create videos about this? So that's how the channel started. It was completely different to what it is now. And I think in future as well, it may not even look like how it looks now. I think it literally will be a representation of where my head's at and what my interests are in that current moment.
And this is why I love your channel. I think this is why the variety of the content, you know, is engaging, as well as kind of having great, you know, professional, well turned out videos. Your content is very honest, and it's still got that kind of rawness of a fresh channel, even though you've got like 3.2k subscribers. I think your most popular video is like 43,000 views, which is incredible, right? And I think even though there's all of that, actually you've got this rawness around the honesty of what you create. And do you look at the numbers? Are you numbers driven, or do you just kind of go with what interests you?
No, I don't look at the numbers, which I know is like a YouTube error, like you shouldn't do that. But it's really because I know a lot of my subscribers or people found my channel when I was making videos about my veganism journey and being plant-based. So I know a lot of those subscribers probably no longer watch my videos. So I know that like my audience probably doesn't match my current content. So that's why I don't place too much focus on the numbers. But I am definitely trying to take YouTube a bit more seriously now, and I'm starting to I'm starting to learn a few things about, you know, how to grow a YouTube channel, how to make thumbnails, etc. So I am definitely becoming more, I guess, statistics mind, like focused on the statistics essentially. But for now, it's not like a key metric that I'm focusing on, because I do want to keep that element of funness to it. So yeah, focusing on the numbers, but not too serious about it at the same time.
Yeah, you kind of look at the numbers because they're interesting, but not because they are the you know, you don't just make videos that do the numbers, right? You make the stuff that interests you. And this is one of the things I really like. I think what your whole channel kind of says is, look, guys, you are always developing in your journey, in who you are. You're always finding out new things about yourself, new interests, and you just kind of make videos about that, and you pursue them, and you show the journey of pursuing them. And I personally find that, right, really authentic content. Is this kind of how you want to keep making videos in the future? Is it like, where do you sort of see a plan for your channel, or is it actually don't have a official plan?
No, I definitely continue to, or I envision that I'll continue sharing my journey, because as you said, a real something I've been really intentional about doing is showing my journey. So there was a point in time where I felt like everyone, or lots of people around me, were buying houses, for example. And I felt quite like taken aback the fact that I had many friends who were buying houses, and they didn't announce to me, like, during the years that they were saving up for a house, etc. It's just like, I feel like we live in a society where people just announce their like successes, and you don't see the journey. And the journey is really important, because it's hard one to keep motivated on the journey, but it's also, you learn so many valuable life lessons on the journey, and people shouldn't just erase that out. So, you know, I've made a ton of videos about my own house buying journey, and I started right at the beginning, like when I first started saving, and I just made sure to put that in my channel, and to make videos about that, because I know that in itself is a really tough journey, and it's usually a long one for people, and it's hard to keep motivated. So I've definitely got great feedback about the fact that I do share my journey with things, and I will continue doing that, because I'm a believer that life isn't like perfect. Not everyone is able to achieve their successes like overnight or in a few months. Sometimes it does take hard work, and you know, there are dips where you may feel down about where you're at in life, etc. And I essentially want to be really relatable, so I definitely won't be erasing those out or not incorporating them into my channel, because I really do feel it's important for people to realize that there are people like them. Yeah, so for sure you will continue to see that on my channel.
And I think that's so important, because, you know, you can often sort of see these videos of, you know, you got this person, like, suddenly, I think society glorifies the two ends of the spectrum, right? They glorify the hustle, right? The bit where you're in the garage and it's cold and you're working 22 hours a day and sleeping under your desk. And then you just suddenly see people pop up and like, oh, look, now I'm a millionaire and I'm the desert island, ta-da! And people don't sort of see that bit in the middle. I feel like that's kind of where you fit in, which is you are showing that bit in the middle and all the things you can learn along the way. Because as you say, actually, that's a really important lesson. Because if we were to rewind a few years, and if you were to tell the audience what you studied at university, they might be surprised to hear where you are today.
Yeah, so I studied law at university. I mean, I did it at A level, and I was really interested in it. It didn't come easy to me at all, but because I got an A at A level, I was like, well, why not? And, you know, people say that lawyers earn a lot of money, right? So I just thought that would be a great career opportunity. So I did that at King's College, and to be honest, after the first few months, I kind of thought like, this isn't the path for me. But I think it's sometimes we do things in life and we feel like, because the wheels have turning or churning, whatever the phrase is, it can be hard to pull the brakes sometimes, and you just feel like you have to keep going. And that's how I felt when I was at university. Although I didn't enjoy my law degree at all, I felt like it was too late to kind of like change courses, or not drop out, but, you know, to change, a pivot essentially. And I did it for the rest of the 3 years, because I just felt like I had to. I didn't know what else I would be able to do. And I think after the first few months, I knew it wasn't the career path for me. And I also heard about the lifestyles of people who worked in magic circle law firms. And the university that I went to, you didn't study law to work in like a high street law firm. It was because you were going to work at Freshfields or Linklaters, etc. So because I just didn't really feel like that resonated with what I wanted to do and what I would be good at, that's why I decided to kind of like not do a training contract after university. And I guess one of the only modules that I kind of like enjoyed was my employment law module, and that opened me up to the world of human resources and like a CIPD qualification after university. So luckily I was able to find my feet after my law degree, but it was definitely a really difficult 3 years of my life. And actually I went to university in London and I used to live in London as well, and like any time that I would kind of like go past Somerset House or that kind of area, my heart would just drop because I remember all the stress of my uni degree. So it's definitely not something that I like to look back on, but it opened up the door to human resources and what I'm doing now. So it wasn't time wasted.
Yeah, I can understand that, but it is really hard, right, when you're doing something that you don't enjoy, to sort of get up every day and do it. And I think there's be a lot of people listening to this who are in the same position. And how did you find that kind of resilience? How did you find that inner strength to go, okay, you know what, I don't like it today, but I am still going to get up. I'm still going to get on that bus. I'm still going to go to that lecture. I'm still going to take that exam. I'm going to write that assignment. How did you get through those 3 years in a way that people at home can kind of take some practical advice to implement?
Well, one, just being really raw and honest, I used my university's counselling service. So I remember during my the final year, I was having like weekly counselling sessions with their, I guess their on-site counsellor. And that really, really, actually, did it really help me? I don't think it did, but it was kind of like helpful having someone to just like offload to, even if I don't really feel like I learned any kind of resilience tips or mindset shifting tips, etc. Just having that person who just to offload to. And I think because they were a university therapist, they probably understood the environment that I was studying in. So he was able to relate to what I was saying and empathize, etc. So that definitely was a huge thing that I relied on during my final year. And I think also because it was a really high performance culture. It's like a red brick university. And most people who go to universities like that, they're aiming for the moon, like the sky and beyond. So I definitely think being in a peer group that were heavily focused on, I guess, success, and no one was really thinking about giving up or not staying up late to revise. I think that environment did spur me on and encourage me to just do the best that I could, because I do think that definitely does impact how much effort we put into things if we're not really around people who spur us on or who inspire us. So those are probably the 2 ways that I use to try and just get through it. And would I do it again? Definitely not, but I think those are the ways that help strengthen my my journey for sure.
And I think that's really great advice, right? You know, find people that inspire you and find a good support network. And to be honest, right, whether people are listening at university or if they're in a job they're not happy with, or they're in a kind of an in-between stage that they're not happy with, or something in their personal life, like that is actually great advice wherever you are in your life stage, for those 2 key things to always remember them. I think that's really important advice. And I think listening to what you're saying there and also thinking about some of the content that you make, do you feel like that experience influences the content that you make today?
I don't believe so, because I definitely don't mention law in my videos, but I think it definitely helped me, I guess, adopt really good habits. So I was always very like organized and, you know, focused on, you know, productive prior to university, and being in that environment just helped build those traits. So I'm always studious in terms of like my work, the way I approach work, my YouTube channel. I do try to be very consistent with my videos, etc. And I think yeah, in essence, it's helped me adopt like an approach that will make me feel like, okay, if I'm doing this, put my all into it. And even if I'm not going to be doing it in 10 years time, like whilst I'm doing it, just try and do my best. So I feel like that's probably what it's helped me develop. But I definitely try not to mention law related stuff, or even really career. I don't really touch on career topics that much in my videos, because it's not always a source of joy for me.
Yeah.
But I do feel like over time, I think even stories like that, where people don't enjoy their job, so they find it stressful or overwhelming at times, I do feel like that's important to share, because again, not many like micro influencers or people on social media at all share that part of their lives. So I will be making content about that in future. But as to the law specifically, because it brings me a lot of stress, just thinking back to my uni years, I probably won't even touch on that. But who knows? I may do it in future when my mind can like talk about it without feeling a sense of dread.
Yeah, that's understandable. I've forgotten what I was going to ask you next. This is why I edit these things.
It will come back to you when we're talking about something else.
It will. Yes, I remembered it. So obviously, you talk about we're thinking about all the different strands that you have today, and law is not something you would typically associate with entrepreneurship, but actually you are an entrepreneur. So at what point did you start to feel like, oh, entrepreneurship is something I can get into? Did you even realize it was entrepreneurship?
To be honest, I feel like being an entrepreneur, it's something that it's a desire that one has or they don't have, because I've always wanted to have my own business in some shape or form since like a very young age. Like I remember when I was in secondary school, one of my friends and we used to sell sweets, I believe it was, in the playground. And even though that was very casual, it wasn't about trying to build a business and profits and margins and stuff like that. That in it was probably my first stint at being an entrepreneur. So I feel, sorry, Charlotte, I've kind of like forgotten what you asked.
No, that's right. I asked
we need to do that again.
Yeah, that's all right. So I asked about entrepreneurship, and at what point did you feel like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur?
It definitely wasn't like a defining moment of when I decided that I want to have my own business. I think it's because I'm always looking for a way to fill my time. And there have been points in my 9-to-5 career where I generally have not felt happy. And I've needed an escape mechanism and something to take my mind off of work during the evenings. So I don't remember that I don't remember there being a defining moment, but I think it's because there have been many points in my career where I felt like I'm either like really overwhelmed or stressed at work due to the volume, and I need to invent something that I can just absorb myself. It was probably about 2 years ago that I decided to start my product-based business, and I do remember needing an escape route for sure. I don't feel like there was like one part of my life where I felt the need to start a business. It's always been something that I've had at the back of my mind, and to be honest, I'm always thinking about what can I create, what business can I start, even if I don't have a serious intention about actually doing something. So I remember actually seeing one of my friends have her own business on Instagram, and that really inspired me to think, okay, what can I be doing? Because for me, that was like such an amazing thing to see, and it inspired me to do better and to achieve more. And I think it just naturally coincided with a point of my career where I was looking for a way to escape from work and to have something in the evenings to focus on. So that's probably when I decided to start the most recent business I've had. But as I said previously, it's having a business, creating stuff, selling stuff, making additional streams of income is always something that is on my mind. And it's been on my mind for a very young age as well.
I think you got that kind of natural entrepreneurial spirit, and then it's sort of come out when you found something that you've seen that interests you and you feel ready to kind of make a commitment to exploring it as far as you want to go. You follow that path until you go, okay, I'm kind of ready to pivot a bit now. And it's that sort of mode that takes you through entrepreneurism, rather than being like, I am going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to follow the set path of being an entrepreneur because this is what the book says entrepreneur should be.
Yeah, it's definitely that. And it goes back to, when I closed my most recent business, it was something that I chose and wanted to do, yes. But because when I thought about all the time and effort and money as well that I had invested in it, I also didn't want to close it. But I really, you know, sometimes when you don't feel lit up by what you're doing, no matter, even if it's bringing money in, it just, sometimes it's clear that perhaps you shouldn't continue doing it. So I feel like in the future I probably would have another business, because I'm always thinking about what else can I be doing, like where are there potentially gaps in the market, and I'm always looking for passion and fulfillment outside of my 9 to 5. So I don't know what it will be at the moment, but I'm pretty sure, like, ask me in 2-3 years time, there'll be another project that I'm working on.
And I think that, you know, your decision to close your business is a success, really, because lots of people have that decision taken away from them. You know, the facts are, I think it's a book, E-Myth Revisited, Why Most Small Businesses Fail. Most 95% of small businesses will fail in their first 5 years. Well, you made the decision to close it because of how you want to live your life, not you went bankrupt and, you know, no one bought the product. It wasn't that at all. It was your choice, and to that end you had the power in that situation. And I think that's a really empowering way to live entrepreneurialism. Is that a word? I'm not sure if that is.
I think it is. I think it actually is. But no, I think even to go deeper into, you know, because I think it is really important for us to think about the future. Yes, it's important to be in the present and to just enjoy the moment, but it is good to plan ahead. And, you know, I think for the second year of the 2 years, I felt like my life was so rushed. Like I was working my 9 to 5, which is a very busy, demanding job in itself. And then I was, you know, trying to rush to the post office before, during, and after work to post orders. It was a handmade product-based business as well. So a lot of the time was spent actually creating the stuff that I would sell and packaging it up, etc. And I felt constantly rushed.
Yeah.
And I'm a person that I actually do like slow living and not having to rush about, etc. So although there were a few reasons why I closed it, I just didn't feel like it aligns to how I wanted to create my life going forward. So yeah, it's a massive reason why, but yeah, I just didn't feel lit up by it, essentially.
I think you touched on something there which is important as well, which is you felt like you were rushing around a lot. And I think in fact almost every guest I've had on the show so far has had either a period or is still in that phase of having a kind of standard 9 to 5 job whilst also having an entrepreneurial thing on the side. And we often talk in this podcast around how you manage time to be able to accommodate that, because, you know, time is a very finite resource. And how you talked about that feeling of being rushed, but so how were you able to manage your time for create, because you were also creating YouTube videos all the way through this as well. So how did you sort of manage your time whilst you were doing all these bazillion things?
Well, at the time, I had essentially, like work, where you have a diary, a work calendar of what happens when. I had that for my own personal life. So during the evenings, again, because I was living by myself, I wasn't with my partner, it was very easy for me to spend Monday to Friday focused solely on my business in the evenings. But I had everything was in my diary, in terms of, you know, I'd spend one evening creating content for the social media page. I'd create a second evening just, you know, coming up with ideas for the blog that I had that was linked to the website. So each day was dedicated to a different task. And that did help me feel, I guess, be more productive, because I time blocked things. So it was easy to know what I was supposed to be doing, I guess, where I was supposed to be, when, etc. So that helped me be productive and, I guess, produce the content and the products that I was able to produce. I think as my life changed, you know, I was getting used to living with someone else and, you know, accommodating someone else. And I no longer wanted that rigidness, if that makes sense. I wanted to be free and to explore my new lifestyle. So that kind of organization no longer works for me. But at the time, definitely each day, planning what I needed to do and when, and time blocking things really, really helped. And especially for the social media page, so I had an Instagram page as well. I blocked times where I would be creating content in advance, and I'd, you know, diarize what content went out on which days, etc. So I definitely work really well with structure and deadlines and knowing what happens when, and that helped me be really, really productive.
I really like that. And I think, that rigidity and that knowing what you're going to do when can help you kind of get in the right headspace for when you need to do that thing. Sometimes I look at things, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to write this and I've got to do that, I've got to do that and that. I'm like, oh, where do I even start? And actually, sometimes you find you're trying to content switch too much. But if you group it by the similar types of activity, you can then look at it in a way and be like, oh, I can now think about these things as a group. I guess what you talk around there is when it's easier, right, when you are single or when you're not living with a partner, because you have the time. It's as simple as that, right? It's either you're doing this or, like, yes, you'll be spending some time with your friends, but let's be honest, in the pandemic we haven't been able to
It
do
wasn't
that.
happening.
So it's just you and the TV, and like that gets boring after 5 minutes. So I I guess it's a difficult question, but do you feel like there is a challenge between being able to do all these entrepreneurial things and have a kind of be living with a partner at the same time? Like, do you feel like these two things just don't sit together?
I think it depends what kind of business you have. And this is why I'm still open to having a business in the future. I think it's quite difficult if you have, again, a product-based business where you're actually making your products yourself, because there's a lot of time investment that is included that isn't there if you have like an business, for example, like a service-based business. So I do think if you have a partner, you're living with them, etc., it is able to, keep that relationship alive and to, spend a lot of time with your partner if potentially you have a service-based business. And what I mean by that is, you may create your own products, but you're only creating them one time. You're not creating a new product, etc., every time you get an order in. That will free up a lot more time for, spending time with friends, family, etc. But I think it is really difficult being a one-man band and having a product-based business, because the more orders you get, the more time you need to spend creating the products, fulfilling the orders, creating, keeping your spreadsheets up to date for your accountant, etc. It's all on you. So I do feel there is a bit of a conflict there. And that also leads to the point about being open about if you want to bring on additional people. I have seen people post on social media pages that they're hiring for an intern, etc. And usually those opportunities aren't paid. But that's something that you can do if you do have a business and you're feeling like, I don't have time to do all these things. That can give someone else the opportunity to learn about having a business, marketing, etc., and potentially free up your own time. So that's what I would suggest for someone who's kind of like in that predicament at the moment. But yeah, I honestly do feel like it is very, very difficult having a product-based business, especially if it's handmade stuff, and having time to go out with friends, family, etc., because all of your free time is going to be spent on your business.
I agree, and I think there's a real challenge between, people glorify the struggle, people glorify the hustle, but what, like, the flip side of that is it's quite a selfish way to live, really. Like, and it is ultimately for the greater good, because the products that you create are helping people, or the service you're delivering are helping people, and so it has this altruistic element. But in terms of the impact on the immediate people around you, you end up like declining going for dinners, or declining drinks, or you said your partner, well, we'll do it tomorrow night, not tonight. And there is that balance. And I think it's important to be receptive to when you've got those kind of changes coming in your life, that you don't try to do everything. You accept that some things have to change, and to think about how you want to navigate those, whether that is to bring on an intern, as you say, or close down a business, or pivot it a bit, or kind of limit your product range, or whatever it is, that you accept that pivot is going to have to happen, and you don't try to fight it. Because I think it's when you try to fight it that everything starts to crumble.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, for me as well, there was the element of I no longer felt connected to the things that I was creating, because my interests and my values changed. But whilst you were speaking, I was thinking, it's great if you have a partner who can actually help you with your business, because, my husband did help me with creating my labels for my products. So I guess it wasn't only me, because I did have some kind of help with like the design aspect of things. But I do feel, no one should make us feel like we have to close our own business. It definitely was my decision. It wasn't because my husband told me, oh, you're not spending enough time with me, etc. Like, I genuinely wanted to be able to spend my evenings in front of the TV, just relaxing and not having to focus on something else. That's because I personally wanted that. So it is important to have partners or siblings, whoever it is, who actually understand your passions. And if you truly do want to spend your evenings and your weekends working on your business, growing your customer base, etc., then that's great. And hopefully the people around you will support you. But if and when you feel like, you know what, I actually want to spend more time with my kids or my partner, etc., we should be able to allow ourselves to do that and not feel like, oh, we're a failure, because the right thing to do is to have multiple businesses, not even just one business, multiple streams of income, to be, you know, doing X, Y, and Z. That's not always what success means, or that's not what success always means for everyone. So just make sure you define it on your own terms.
And you know what? I think that is such an important statement. I think that's the key thing, right? Define it on your terms. Because I personally believe that we can't have everything. We can only have confidence in the choices that we make. And if we have that, then anything anybody wants to say, any opinion they want to give, any stereotype you want to throw at it, is frankly irrelevant. And that feels like a really great place to wind this up. So I have one last question for you, which is, for people listening at home, generally are kind of in their 20s to 30s, thinking about entrepreneurialism. So with that in mind, what are the 3 bits of advice you'd give to people at home?
First thing that comes to mind is, I know it's a bit cliche, but find a gap in the market, because you probably will lose inspiration and motivation if you're just doing something that everyone else is doing. If it feels unique to you, that will be a driver for you to continue and actually to try and make a success of it. So try and find a gap in the market. I would say learn about online, like retail commerce, you know, having your own website, your own Shopify, whatever it is you want to create, and learn about, you know, tips about where to place things on your website. Learn about having an e-store, and learn. I think there's an actual word that I'm looking for that I can't come to, it doesn't come to mind for whatever reason, but definitely learn about e-commerce, because you can have many people visiting your website and they may not actually be buying things, and it's not because your product's rubbish or they're not interested. It may be because you need to place something slightly differently, or you need to change the copy on your website, the way you've phrased things, etc. So definitely learn about e-commerce. And I would say as well, identify, this would be the third thing, is identify someone who influences you or who inspires you. So potentially someone who is doing what you're doing, not exactly the same thing, but someone who you can look up to, who's a bit further ahead than you. So you can see, okay, like if I continue, I can potentially achieve X, Y, Z. That definitely helped keep me on my journey, having people that I looked up to in the same industry. And that can also help you identify more gaps in the market. You can see what other people are not doing that you feel like they could or should be doing, and that can help you differentiate yourself to your customers as well. So those are probably the 3 things that I would recommend.
That is sound business advice. I can feel you making a business a business every course on this. Maybe that's the next business. Maybe we just found it here tonight. Rachel,
yes, I think
there we go. We found it. What's the next business?
It's an e-course about how to start your own business and to differentiate yourself, etc.
Yeah, coming to Rachel Abi's website. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us on the channel. I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for sharing all your insights. Your channel is Intentional Adulting. There'll be link in the description, and any other socials, websites you want to send people to?
Instagram is what I'm using in addition to YouTube, so it's the same handle, Intentional Adulting. And yeah, message me, leave a comment on my videos, etc.
Brilliant. Guys, go and check them out. Honestly, I'm a huge fan of the channel. So thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you today. And yeah,
Lovely.
see you all soon.